Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cole. Sunday night, January 17th, moving into week 3 of Humanities 2333 for the spring 2021 term. Everyone, you can see quite a mess behind me. I'm in the middle of moving and we haven't unpacked yet. And it's going to be this way for another week or two, but at least we have our computer up and running so that we can speak to you via YouTube as we move into another week of the spring term. Trying to get all this material in 6 weeks. I know we're throwing quite a bit at you in the space of a short period of time. So, hope you'll bear with us and keep up with it. We'll be through with the whole thing in a matter of 8 weeks. We're just finishing up the second discussion. That runs through tonight, so it's got another couple of hours to run. And with any luck, I'll be getting that graded tomorrow once it closes at midnight tonight. We have a second quiz for you to take, a second extra credit quiz that will run through Thursday at midnight. And this gives you 5 items and a chance to get 3 extra credit points for each item you answer correctly based on the class notes for lectures 1 and 3. That will be running through Thursday, which is also the due date for your first written assignment, and I want to say a bit more about that before we finish up tonight. Everyone, we're throwing quite a bit of material at you, I know, in a short time. I wanted to say a little bit about some of the material on the syllabus. We had last week lectures 3 and 4, Plato and Aristotle, and then rationalism and empiricism. And then for this week, we have mind and body, including the issue of free will and determinism, and then a little bit of material about artificial intelligence, which I hope will be of interest to you, especially those of you who are majoring in computer information systems. Rationalism and empiricism. Let me say just a few words about that to try to summarize it for you very quickly. We've assigned a total of 4 textbook chapters. It's our longest assignment from the text for the entire term. We're trying to boil it down to 1 set of class notes. The important thinkers for you to be aware of here are Descartes, Locke, Hume, and Kant. Now let's run through what they say about this issue of rationalism and empiricism very quickly. Now, Descartes was the great rationalist. He believed he could draw conclusions about himself, God, and the external world around him simply by introspection. Okay, now that's the rationalist point of view. It's the view that knowledge is attainable through sources other than simple sense experience. Okay, Descartes believed, I think, therefore I am. He believed that through introspection he could establish that his own existence could not be doubted. And on the basis of that, he could establish the existence of God and the external world. John Locke comes along and says that this is all a lot of bunk, and that really the source of all knowledge is sense experience, pure and simple. And there's no knowledge apart from sense experience. Otherwise, he feared we were going to descend into a great deal of mystification. And so Locke was very dismissive of the rationalist ideas of a thinker like Descartes. So Locke insists that there's nothing but sense experience. The mind is a blank slate upon which experience writes. David Hume comes along and goes 1 step further than John Locke. He says that if Locke is correct, Locke may have drawn some unwarranted conclusions about what can be known if the only source of knowledge is sense experience. Because what Hume points out is that if sense experience is the only source of knowledge, then perhaps all we can know is that we have had sense experience. But we can't really establish the relationship between sense experience and an object in the external world. That's not warranted. according to Hume. And in fact, if you look at Hume, he arrives at the conclusion, not too much of an exaggeration to say that for Hume, you really can't know much of anything. So we say that Descartes is a rationalist and Locke and Hume are empiricists. It might be just as well to say that Hume is a skeptic. He doesn't think that you can really know much of anything. Then Kant comes along, Immanuel Kant, and attempts to resolve this debate. Okay? Because he insists that there is both a rational and an empirical component to all knowledge. Okay? There's perhaps no knowledge apart from sense experience, but your mind has to be loaded with a kind of software to enable you to make sense of that experience. And without that setup, which is the rational, non-empirical part of knowledge, you really won't be able to make much sense of the sense experience that you have. One conclusion that follows from that some people find kind of disturbing is that Kant believes you really can't have any immediate, direct experience of yourself. You can't really know yourself. Okay? Because all experience is mediated by this setup or this apparatus that you have between your ears. But it's been widely regarded that Kant made a considerable advance in philosophy of mind and helped to resolve the dispute between the rationalists and the empiricists. There are other thinkers among the rationalists and the empiricists, but I would say those four are the most important: Descartes, Locke, Hume, and Kant. Now, on the relation of mind and body, what we're asking you to discuss this week, through this weekend, through tonight, the important issue is whether or not you are a philosophical naturalist, whether you think that the mind is anything other than that gray matter between your ears. And if you're not a naturalist, more than likely you're a philosophical theist of some kind. Now, related to the issue of mind and body is that of free will and determinism. Okay, now, on free will and determinism, the notion that we are indeed free is called sometimes libertarianism. That's the terminology we use in your class notes, I believe, which is also a political doctrine, but in this context, that has nothing to do with politics. It's a position on the issue of free will and determinism. Now, the opposite of that would be determinism. Okay? But your class notes distinguish two positions: hard determinism and soft determinism. One thing that students very often don't get straight is that both the hard determinist and the soft determinist are determinists. I believe everything we do is determined by our environment, perhaps, or by the experiences that we've had. Okay, and so we're not really free. But the soft determinist believes that that is compatible with holding people responsible, as in the criminal justice system. Okay. And why the soft determinist believes that, well, we'll leave the details of that up to you as you look at your class notes. But keep in mind, both the soft determinist and the hard determinist are both determinists, one no less than the other. But the soft determinist believes that determinism is compatible with holding people responsible, which is one of the big side issues surrounding the issue of free will and determinism. If we're determined, can we really hold each other responsible? Okay. All right, on top of that, we have in the class notes for Lecture 6, as I said, some material on artificial intelligence that I hope will be of interest to you. Artificial intelligence has been a major topic of interest in recent times among philosophers. Okay. Is it really possible for an artificial entity constructed by human beings to have a mind or to think? Okay. Do these entities really do that? Well, that's among the issues you'll find discussed in those class notes on artificial intelligence. Now then, everyone, for our written assignment, which is due this week, remember, once again, as I believe I mentioned last week, it's not really a research paper, although doing some research might help you with it. You need to be sure you understand the difference in perspective between Plato and Aristotle before you try to answer the question of whether or not you are a Platonist or an Aristotelian. Now, there are many approaches you can take, and there are many issues you could raise. Okay, there are the ethical views of Plato and Aristotle, there are political views, but be sure you understand the difference between them on the issue of the relation between form and matter. Okay? Watch very carefully for that. That's discussed very thoroughly, I believe, in your textbook chapter on these two thinkers. Okay, what is the relation between form and matter? Okay, what do we mean by form? Okay, the textbook mentions, I believe, that philosophers were puzzled by the question of how it was that we could say that something changes and yet remains the same, like a person growing up from infancy to adulthood. And philosophers came to believe that one way they could give an account of that is by distinguishing carefully between form and matter. But Plato and Aristotle have different beliefs about form. So watch very carefully for that as you will work on your written assignment and try to determine whether or not you yourself are a Platonist or an Aristotelian. Now everybody, the due date is Thursday. We're going to try to chat online about the assignment Tuesday evening. I'm tentatively setting this for 7:45 p.m. Central Time, Tuesday evening. And we'll chat for 45 minutes. Okay, so you don't have to take part, but if you have questions about the assignment, you can enter the chat room and fire your questions at me. I believe all you have to do is find the chat link on your course homepage in Canvas, click on that, and you'll be in the chat room. So we're tentatively scheduling that for Tuesday evening, 7:45 p.m. for 45 minutes. So if you choose to take part in that, we'll see you in the chat room. Okay, please be sure to try to get your papers in on time by the end of the business day, by midnight Thursday. Okay. Other than that, work hard, take it easy, and we will speak to you again 1 week from tonight at this time.